Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jackie Brockington. Up until about 3 years ago, I was one of the news anchors at Spectrum News 13 for the past 16 and a half years. And since that time, I try to keep myself busy in the community and doing events such as this one. I'll be moderating tonight's Senate District 13 debate. And tonight's debate is hosted by the Commission on Local Debates, which is a nonprofit organization focused on voter education. Now, the questions for tonight's debate were reviewed and approved by the Commission's nonpartisan board, as well as nonpartisan community partners, including the League of Women Voters of Orange County and UCF's Lou Fry Institute. Now, Florida's 13th Senate District is currently represented by Senator Linda Stewart. District 13 covers northern and eastern portions of Orange County, and that includes downtown Orlando, Winter Park, Edgewood, Belle Isle, and Bithlo. Now, this race is on the general election ballot for this coming November 3rd, and the winner will serve for 4 years. Now, today, we welcome the candidates running to represent Florida Senate District 13, incumbent Linda Stewart, a Democrat, and Republican Josh Anderson. Now, candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to each question and 30 seconds for rebuttals if their name is invoked by the other candidate. Based on the results of the coin toss before we went on camera, Josh will go for, Mr. Anderson will go for introductions, and Senator Stewart will go for the first question. Now, each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and we're asking, please use this time to tell us about your background and qualifications, as well as who you are when you're not in session. And so with that, Mr. Anderson, we will start with you.
Hello, thank you for having me, and everybody who is watching, thank you for tuning in. My name is Josh Anderson. I was born in Ohio. I grew up and I was a very outdoors kid, run around in the woods, mountain biking, climbing, all that stuff. When I was in college, I went to college in Western Pennsylvania. I graduated with 2 bachelor's degrees in 2008 during the recession, and I took a career of entertainment. Within that, I was the kid who literally ran away and joined the circus. I worked for Ringling Brothers for 2 years, where I had an amazing chance to travel the entire country, as well as a lot of places outside of the country internationally. And when it came down to wanting to settle and start a family, me and my then girlfriend, now wife, chose Central Florida. Since then, I've become a homeowner in this area. I've been major part of the community. I continue to help my neighbors and community as much as I can, including school drives, food drives, whatnot. And currently I work in a cottage industry that supports theme parks, developing special effects systems and engineering special effects systems, as well as a mortgage loan office. And I look forward to the opportunity to represent this district.
Thank you very much. Senator Stewart?
Yes, thank you for providing this opportunity to residents in 13 to hear our different platforms. I have been elected for 14 years in various offices, 8 years in the county commission, 2 years in the House, and now I'm serving the rest of my 4 years in the Senate, and that's why there's an election again, because we go every 4 years. I have been always very strict about making sure that I work across the aisle, that the things that are important to our community is important no matter what your party affiliation is. So it's very important that we work together to get things, common sense things passed. I had worked on septic to sewer. I have done equal pay for equal work, a lot of women and children's issues. I just finished doing this last session with Donna's Law. And I think that fighting the environment has been very critical situation. It's getting worse, and we know that there's a climate change. And one of my whole entire Senate colleagues voted to put climate change on the agenda, that we all recognize there is such a thing, and that we will be working toward things that will improve our climate. So I think that I don't have any other job. I'm a full-time senator, and I work, and we have to be these days because we've got unemployment that is messed up, and we've got COVID and, food insecurity. So there's a lot that we have to accomplish while we're not in session. So thank you. That was about it. I'll have to take questions if there are any later on.
Oh, all right. We do have questions, and we'll start the first question with you, Senator Stewart. What do you think is the most important issue facing the people in your district, and how do you plan to address it?
We have two that sort of coincide with one another, and that is the virus that has caused our tourism industry to collapse. Layoffs on all fronts are occurring because of COVID. Nobody wants to come to the tourist places that make up a good part of this budget for the state of Florida. And those that are assist and help those in entertainment like Universal and Disney, all the hotels that are associated have laid off $1,500, 1,500 people each. We have a real desperate problem here because of COVID. We need to get COVID under control. I don't think the governor is paying a close attention to how we're going to do that, but we absolutely need to wear masks and listen to the scientists and try to bring that down. We have had a spike in Florida, and we're going to see even more. We came down, but now we're going back up. So we cannot get people back to work until we get the COVID under control, because no one wants to come to Florida and be exposed to the virus. So we've got it one foot above the other.
All right. The same question for you, Mr. Anderson. What do you
Yes,
think is the most
first I
important?
want to address the fact that Ms. Stewart has said that she works across the aisle. Last campaign, I want to remind her that her argument was that the person she was running against was not Democratic enough to fit that seat. Second off, Stewart's right. There is a lot of issues with job loss. There is a lot of issues with reactions with the COVID virus and companies shutting down, businesses shutting down. That's only one of the many issues our district faces. Orlando is number 2 for sex trafficking. That's something that we need to stop. That is not okay. Our state is number 2 for water quality, for worst drinking water. We're beating Flint, Michigan. That's not an accomplishment. We need to address that. We have issues with funding schools and making sure that our teachers are well paid. Our teachers are staying because they flee to other states to get larger pay benefits. And there's more than just the virus. To nail it down to one issue is impossible. There is tons and tons that we have to continue to strive to improve on. One big thing is also criminal reform, making sure that we're working specifically, making sure that drug courts are funded and getting people out of the criminal system.
All right. The next question is for you, Mr. Anderson. What bills are you looking to support in the upcoming session? And please tell us why.
Unemployment is a big one. Making sure that we are raising our unemployment threshold. The first reason is because under the newest act that was going to be passed for the federal funding, Florida didn't qualify because we don't pay enough in the benefits, and we can't have that. As well as the $200 and something threshold is a drop in the hat for what most Floridians make. And Ms. Stewart is 100% right that our state is very heavily dependent on entertainment. I myself work in entertainment. That is my job. I support theme parks, and luckily my job has not been compromised, but I've seen a lot of peers and colleagues who have still not received checks. Disney has just announced that they are doing another round of layoffs for their equity actors, and to make sure that our unemployment has been addressed. That is the first one. Second one is making sure that we're able to fund drug courts. Third one is to work and lobby with companies to push and remove barriers for safe environmental and sustainable policies.
All right. And Senator Stewart, the same question for you. What bills are you looking to support in the upcoming session and why?
Well, the first thing that we need to do is get a new computer system and do away with Connect, because it was intended to be broken and it is beyond broken. So we can't pay people in a timely way. And some of my constituents have been waiting for months to get their first paycheck. I have to go to Tallahassee every 2 weeks and meet with the Department of Economic Opportunity to make sure that those people that are in district are being attended to and getting their paychecks. It has helped, but we have a very arcade system. It was not designed to give folks the unemployment that they need. We need to increase the amount of weekly unemployment to at least 387, and we need to also increase the amount of weeks that they're eligible for, and that is between 20 and 22 weeks. So upping the amount per week and the length of it will coincide with about the average of the United States. So we are second from the bottom. And I don't think that's something to be proud of. So we're going to have, that's number one, is when we get back, is we're going to have to work on the system itself so that we can start paying these people in a timely manner. We have also, we're going to be working on one of the president's, and I'm really thankful that he has decided to take this on, is sea level rising. And I have spoken to President Simpson, because I also
Time is
think
almost up, Senator.
we,
All right.
I have
You
a
can finish
minute or
your
no?
No, time is up. All
Okay,
right.
got it.
But the
I didn't
next,
see anything flash on the screen.
oh, I'll help you. I'll help you. We'll continue with you, Senator. Governor DeSantis, speaking of the governor, Governor DeSantis used an executive order to move Florida from phase 2 to phase 3 in the state's response to COVID-19. What is your response to the governor's decision?
It was absolutely inconsiderate and it's wrong. We are spiking right now, and it should have been foretold that we were going to do that. The scientist has told everybody he's listening to scientists that are not qualified to help him make those decisions. And I think that we're not going to be able to invite anybody to come to Florida if we have a very high COVID. So I am opposed to opening up as soon as he did. He should not have done that. And I hope that he will go back and look at the science of this COVID and do what is necessary to keep our citizens safe.
Mr. Anderson, I direct the same question to you. The governor went from phase 2 to phase 3 in response to COVID. What is your response to the governor's decision to do so?
I do not envy his position right now in any way, shape, or form. No matter what he's going to do, it's going to be the wrong choice. The problem that we have is we do not have a national guideline to go off of, and the states and the counties have been left to figure it out on their own. And unfortunately, not everything works for the county to county. And so I would dread to be in this position. One thing I do know is I was in Newport Richey a couple weeks ago and walking through that downtown and seeing it deserted. It's 100% because of the reaction of how we've handled this or mismanaged this. The whole thing has been mismanaged from day one, both at a national, state, and city level. And I really I'm not envious of being in this position.
All right. Keeping the subject of the pandemic, Senator Stewart, with you, Josh, excuse me, the pandemic and associated job losses, which we've talked about, have contributed to a growth in the percentage of Floridians without health insurance, which was already over 10% before COVID-19. Now, if elected, how will you respond to the growing percentage of Floridians without health insurance?
I would work to expand Medicare to cover them. I would work to put some type of policy in place as a safety net for when there is a pandemic, when there is a state of emergency, when industry just completely folds, that people aren't left aside. The government should function as a safety net and a support system, not as an end-all be-all, and we need to act that way. We have shown that there are flaws in our system, and the best part is they have shown in a way that they cannot be ignored. Making sure that we have people that are covered when their industry goes away from no fault of their own, that they don't have to worry about getting sick.
All right, and Senator Stewart, the same question for you. If elected, how will you respond to the growing percentage of Floridians without health insurance?
Well, we have tried, and I have been on the side of drawing down Medicaid, and we have never been able to get those in the leadership positions to accept that. They felt it was too expensive, that we could not afford as a state to bring that down, but it's our money that we sent up to Washington. And I think that the only fair thing is to bring it back here, and that would have helped 20 million or more people. But what I'm really most concerned about is existing conditions and what happens in DC if they get rid of the ACA. And then all of a sudden, the 9 million or so people thus far that have been diagnosed with COVID may fall into a category that calls that they have existing conditions and not be covered. So when we go to Tallahassee, we're going to make it very clear that in Florida, we are going to cover existing conditions. I can't think of all the seniors who must have some type of condition that they need covered, and it's so unfair to them and others that have illnesses that they have to have results from.
All right, continuing in talking about unemployment, Senator, in light of the long delays, you talked about paying out unemployment benefits by the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, or DEC. What changes, if any, are warranted to Florida DEO?
Well, as I had mentioned, we have totally busted Connect system that is not working for anybody in Florida. You can't wait. Our citizens can't wait 3-4 months to get a check, and that some of them haven't gotten one yet since March. And it's going to require them hiring experienced people to man the computers, because at the beginning they just had people answering the phone that didn't even have access to the files of the people calling and wanting their money. It's maybe gotten a bit better, but so many people getting laid off is just mounting the lack of attention that each and every one are getting, because we've experienced something that I don't think anybody even had a clue that we were doing. So we've got to really go in and do a fine-tooth review of this system and make it so that we can get people their money as soon as possible. It's really awful in Central Florida and throughout the whole state. And I've talked to many of my colleagues already, and I think they're willing now to come in there and do something that we can get this back on track and people start getting their money. And of course, we need the stimulus package passed up in DC for our workers.
All right, thank you. Well, the same question for you, Mr. Anderson, in light of the long delays. What changes, if any, are warranted to Florida DEO?
Look, Miss Stewart puts together great lip service for this. The bottom line is the system has been damaged for many, 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 many years. She has sent emails before saying that it's damaged and nothing has been done. She has not been able to get anything done. I have been on unemployment, not during the pandemic, but in previous times, 2 years ago, same thing with my wife, and it was busted then. To pretend like, oh my gosh, this is emergency, now we got to fix it. It needed to be fixed 2 years ago before this. The truth of the matter is there was plenty of telltale signs that our system was going bust, and our leadership did nothing to prevent it. Now people are faced with not having a house, not having jobs, not being able to put food on the table. And it's because of lack of leadership and lack of positions, lack of fortitude to get it done. Bottom line, the system has been busted for many, 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 many years. It got to the point where when I was trying to go through it 2 years ago, I went, I'm not even touching it. and it just to hear somebody who's been in the position for so long to go, well, now we need to be proactive and do something. Proactive and do something was 2 years ago.
All right, thank you. Well, Senator, do you wish to respond?
No.
All right, then we will move along. And the next question will be for you, Josh. What do you believe should be the state's budget priorities given COVID-19's impact? And what are the possible changes to the current budget to address these priorities?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. There are so many people that are just being left to fend for themselves with no safety net. My biggest thing that I would do is to sit there and fight with companies to work to maintain and keep as many people employed so that they don't get sucked up by the system, because it's not working. People are not being able to do that. One of the biggest budget things that we need to look at is making sure, especially going forward, we've seen a huge discrepancy between access to education, specifically computer technology, internet infrastructure, and just access to good education. That's a priority. We need to fix that. We need to address that. And we're not going to address that by passing a ton of laws and bills. We're going to address that by working with companies, working with AT&T, working with the providers to come up with very good, solid solutions that are sustainable and work. As far as things that would suffer, nothing can suffer. That's the problem that we have with budgets and state budgets, is you can't rob Peter to take care of Paul, because you leave an entire group out. What I would propose is that we put structures to get people off of services, like expanding welfare, so people can go to school and get off of welfare because they're able to obtain education and training. That in the long run will save money and put us back in black.
All right, thank you. And Senator, what do you believe should be the state's budget priorities given COVID-19's impact, and what are the possible changes to the current budget to address those priorities?
Well, we have about a $3 billion deficit right now. I don't think there are going to we're going to be cutting. We're going to have to find, the priority is to find ways to plug the hole of that deficit so that we could have these projects available to the citizens, such as education, homelessness, and making sure our environment is not destroyed any further. So there are ways that we can go about plugging that hole. We have internet sales tax that we can look at, that we've looked at before, but maybe that would be acceptable this year. We have
So your solution is to raise taxes?
Excuse me, I'm not finished. I never said that.
One moment, please, Mr. Anderson. You'll have a chance for rebuttal.
Did you hear
Senator?
tax mentioned in my comment? I don't think so. And so the other things that we can do is make sure that internet sales tax is what they do. Every state does that. What they did in 2010 when we had a similar deficit, they put an extra $1 on cigarettes. We still have the compact with the Seminole Indian tribes to put a deal together. We haven't had that for a couple of years. That would be a good time this year to do that so we can bring in some more money. There are certainly ways that we can raise money without raising taxes.
All right. Did you have a rebuttal, Mr. Anderson?
Yes. Raising taxes.
30 seconds, please.
Raising taxes during a recession is counterproductive. It's going to put more people on the street than the government is going to have to fend for more people. End of discussion.
Moving on, Senator, how does party affiliation, let's talk about that, play into your votes, and on which issues would you be willing to cross the aisle?
I cross the aisle when there are good bills, and likewise. We do a lot of talking in committee, and with there's only 40 of us, so we have the advantage of being able to communicate with one another on a regular basis. Not just in committee, but at other times. And so the ideal situation is if you have a good idea and you take it to the chairman of the different committees and you can ask them to hear your bill because they will agree that it's a good bill to move forward, you will get it heard. I'm one of the most successful in Central Florida to be able to get bills heard and get bills passed.
All right. The same question for you, Mr. Anderson. How does party affiliation play into your votes? On which issues would you be willing to cross the aisle?
Zero. Party affiliation has nothing to do with what's right. What's right is what's right no matter what. For instance, Senator Stewart passed Donna's bill or Donna's law. I would have voted for that hands down. There's some other bills that came through across the aisle. I'd vote for hands down. The bottom line is we need to support Floridians. And where my party affiliation comes from is it gives me a guideline to how I'm going to get to that answer. But there is nothing that says because I'm a Republican, I'm voting this way, because what's right is what's right.
All right, moving on for you, Mr. Anderson. In the past, the legislature has discussed using tax dollars to expand school vouchers that allow students to attend private schools using public funds. Do you support expanding the use of public funds for private schools? And if so, which criteria or stipulations would you support for these schools to receive these vouchers?
We have to fundamentally rethink how we think of education. For the longest time, and even in my childhood, we thought of education as an expense, and we need to look at it as not an expense, but an investment into our future. It is our future labor force, it is our future citizens, it is our future neighbors, and we need to look at it that way. I don't think taking money from public schools to go to private schools is a good thing, and vice versa. I don't think a parent should lose the option to send their schools. What I would want to do, and this is a long journey kind of thing, is to remove the ability for the student, the dollar associated with the student and where he goes, to remove that and make sure that all of our schools are funded. That is a hard, whether it's private or public, and that they have to meet the same educational standards. That's a hard thing to get done. That's a hard thing to pass, because it is a lot of tax dollars that would go to these schools. But bottom line, we need to have strong education and strong graduation rates and strong schools, because that is our workforce, that is our neighbors, that's our next citizens, that's all that type of stuff. And we need to invest in our future and not look at how we can cut the fat off of our education.
The same question for you, Senator Stewart.
I have never voted to take public money out of the school system and put it toward private schools. There's private schools and charter schools and then public schools. And I think that the charter schools are fine because they follow what the public schools do, and it gives the parents choice. But private schools are renegade schools. They have no accountability. They hire whoever they want for a large amount of money, and we don't have any way of checking them. So I don't think they should be using public dollars.
All right, thank you. The next question is for you, Senator Stewart. Do you support the 3 toll roads proposed for construction through rural Florida? And if so, please explain your reasoning.
When the vote came up on the floor, it was a hard decision for me, but it was a they were going to look at, this was a proposal to review the 3 roads. I made sure that there were 4 environmental agencies that got on each and every one of the road discussion review, and they were not going to have that opportunity had I not stepped in and made sure that they were there and that they would have input into the roads. I do not think, and we've reviewed these roads before, I do not think they're going to be viable. They will not pay for themselves. There's not enough people that will want to take the toll roads up to that area. So we're at a wait and see. The report will come back to the Senate. We can look at it, see what they came up with, and vote them up or down. So we still are waiting to hear what the report has to say. So I thought it was fine to hear the report, or to put a report together, as long as the environmentalists were involved in that, and then we will see what happens when it comes back to us.
All right, and Mr. Anderson, do you support the 3 toll roads proposed for construction through rural Florida? And please explain your reasoning.
No, not at all. They have been shown to be exactly as she said. They're unsustainable. They cost too much. They will not pay for themselves, and there is a massive environmental toll and impact. For voting for even a review is a first step to approval. I wouldn't have even supported that. As somebody who is an outdoorsman, environmentalist, scuba diver, goes hiking, camping, every which way I possibly can when I have free time, it's important to me to protect those resources. And furthermore, that is a big chunk of our industry, is our natural resources. To put something that potentially could lead towards the destruction of that, absolutely not. I will not vote for that.
All right, and continuing with you, Mr. Anderson, what should the state's legislature's priorities be as they pertain to the state university system?
keep improving it. We have some of the top schools graduating rates as well as educational performances. Rollins is improving. UF is doing wonderful, and to continuously do that. The biggest thing that we need to do is for our citizens, our state citizens, is making sure that education is obtainable and affordable. And that's what our priority needs to be, is how are we going to support those schools and make sure that is. And that is working with the schools and the communities to improve endowment programs, improve funding programs to where students are more easily able to obtain further education.
And the same question for you, Senator Stewart.
I think we have been doing well with the funding of the university, but where we're lacking and where we need to concentrate, I think, is the community colleges. That I don't think we're giving them the money that they need, and most of the students that come out of high school prefer to go to a community college and then promote themselves on to a university. So I think we're going to be working on that as well next year.
The next question, Senator, is a two-part question. The first part being, what is the state's role in determining development east of the Econoline-Hatchie River?
I am opposed to that. I was opposed to that when I was a county commissioner. I think that is the fine line that we draw, that we should not be developing beyond the Econ River. There's a lot of push to have them develop that because, and there's no reason for it really, because what they ought to be doing is infill and trying to take lands and and communities that we can build up on and not have to build out like they prefer to do. So right now, I just think it's wrong.
All right, so that was the state's role asking that question. Do you support development east of the Econoline-Hatchie River?
Is that for me?
I'm sorry, Mr. Anderson, yes.
Because I thought I just answered that.
I heard two-part questions, so I was
Yes, you
waiting,
just answered that question. Excuse me. Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Look, growth in our area is inevitable. We are going to grow. Projection is that we're going to, I believe the last I saw was 2 million over in the Central Florida area over the next decade. I think I'm a little high on that, but we have to make sure that any development we have is sustainable. One of the things that we have is we have tons of other valuable land that can be repurposed and developed. That should be our first priority before we go out and continue to urban sprawl. The biggest thing is we have to stop slapping up small residential condos everywhere and look at how we can develop mixed-use park developments and do it in a sustainable way to where we have the ability for growth before we even consider urban sprawl.
All right, and continuing with you, Mr. Anderson, what should the state legislature's role be in recruiting and retaining the best teachers for our students in K through 12?
It should be a huge one. My brother was a teacher in Lehigh, which is down in Fort Myers. He was an award-winning teacher. He's a baseball teacher. He got so many kids scholarships for college. He took some of his kids to the mall for the very first time. And when he had children, he moved back to Ohio because of pay. Governor DeSantis and many of the state Senate and House approved bills to increase teachers' fundings, and that will surely help. But the state needs to work with the school districts and find out what those needs are on a district by district basis. And a lot of that is teacher pay and teacher benefits. And we have to make sure that we secure funding for those.
And Senator Stewart, what should the state's legislative role be in recruiting and retaining the best teachers for K through 12?
Well, I think the pay. And this year we did do probably the most we've ever done for teachers' pay, where we put $47,000 as the minimum for new teachers for recruitment. But what they failed to do and what needs to be done is they didn't address the teachers that have been teaching 10, 15 years. That didn't come into play. So we're going to have to work on that a little bit more so we can put more money into the pockets of those who have been with us for a long time and have been teaching a long time. You can't replace experience. Those are the teachers that are very valuable to our students, and making sure that they get that really good education. And I think that the recruitment part should be working, because of the pay increase. We were so far at the bottom. It was, well, we sometimes tend to be at the bottom on everything, quite frankly. But this move from last year seemed to be something of a help. And I think the unions need to be involved with these decisions. And sometimes it does, sometimes they are, and then sometimes they're not, because the school board has to work with the unions on this, on these matters. They get the money, but then they have to just negotiate. So we need to have some money put there in place that they will actually get the money.
All right, thank you. Continuing with you, Senator, the next is a two-part question that focuses on the tourist development tax and the impact of COVID-19 on tourism. The first part, I'm asking, what is the best way for District 13 to respond to the impact of COVID-19 on tourism?
We have sunk to the bottom because of this, and we can't get if we don't get COVID under control, nobody's going to come and visit these attractions and be here in Florida. So I said that at the beginning. I haven't changed my mind, because that's really where we are with that. But the COVID issue is going to remain an important issue, particularly if our governor can't see to us wearing masks and social distancing and all the little small things that we have to do in order to make people comfortable for coming back to Central Florida. So we can't really do more than ask. And in our local community, our mayors have all wanted to make this happen, because they all understand from the science that this is really very important. And so we're just going to have to work on that and hope that we can get a statewide mask requirement, or at least say it's up to the cities and counties to allow that, and put some enforcement, allow them to put enforcement into the mask situation, because we just are not going to get it under control, and nobody's going to come here. On the TDT, it's practically sunk right now, and so we aren't even able to give money to promote coming here, because there's just no money left.
Well, let's talk about money. There's been the second part of that question has been talk about changing how tourist development taxes are used. Do you believe that there should be changes in the allowed uses of tourist development funds? Why or why not?
Well, if we had, as in the past, a robust collection, then yes, I think we can look at other ways to use tourist development tax. I have always wanted to use it on things that would affect the tourism industry. So, like I had asked, I had a bill that asked that tourist development tax be an option for each city or county to use for the film industry. So that also, there was a similar situation where the senator wanted to also, in commerce and tourism, he wanted to also help with the tourism. And of course, I was 100% supportive of that. But I thought that we could use the tourist development tax with the cities and counties to approve it to be used. But we have to change the language in the bill that said that that's possible, that they would possibly be able to do that. So right now they can't. And so we can't use the tourist development tax for a lot of things, but they have increased the types of things that tourist development tax could be used for. But I thought that was an important part of it, because when the film industry comes and everyone comes here, they use the hotels, they use even some of the tourism spots for
And
production. So
your
I
time
think
is
that
up.
was important.
All right, then the same question for you, the two-part question starting, Mr. Anderson. What is the best way for District 13 to respond to the impact of COVID-19, first of all, on tourism?
The first one is to look at the companies that support the tourism industry here, and to work with those companies to keep them building, keep them developing. Universal shut down one of their sites. It has a ripple effect through all the companies that support them. Keep helping work with them to come up with solutions to keep moving progress forward on projects will keep people in their jobs. That's the first and foremost. The second is we need to look at how we are going to diversify our future. If anything shows you having one train of thought does not help your future. So we need to look at how we're going to diversify it, and that's including bringing back in medical research, technology research, and many other sectors into this place, growing our space industry, and continuously looking at this way. Majority of my peers in the entertainment industry have made transitions into other careers, and you're going to continue to see that. We need to make sure that we're supporting those kind of transitions as well, and making sure that we're then putting in policies that are going to allow for the controlment and containment of the virus and getting people back onto their daily lives.
Let's go to the second part of that, about the talk about changing how tourist development taxes are used. So do you believe that there should be changes in the allowed uses of tourist development funds? Why or why not?
I think there should be limited changes. I would support that to changing for infrastructure. Look, I said it before, we have one of the worst drinking water qualities, and the people that are affected are the people that support the tourism industry. And so I would be a fan of supporting that to be able to help fund infrastructure projects.
All right, continuing with you, Mr. Anderson, as of July 1st of this year, Florida now requires parental consent for minors that are seeking abortions. Do you believe that this legislation moves in the right or wrong direction on abortion access? And what further developments would you support on this issue?
My biggest issue with this bill is that there's not a mechanism to sidestep that in the extreme cases of abuse. And that's what I would put forward into working on putting some type of mechanism to sidestep extreme cases of abuse.
The same question for you, Senator Stewart. Do you believe that this legislation moves in the right or wrong direction?
I voted against it. I will always vote against anything that interferes with a woman's right to choose, including girls. And I think that there are a lot of reasons why this is a bad bill. If you are abused by a parent and you have to have a parent come in and agree to what you would like to see happen to your body, that is probably not going to happen. So they need someone to come in and be an advocate for that person and go to the judge. Right now, to have a parental signature is really setting up those children to have, they just won't do it. They'll just be abused.
Continuing on with you, Senator Stewart, what is your position on expanding or restricting marijuana access in Florida?
I am not opposed to that. I do think that if we were to allow marijuana to be legal in Florida, we would have less people incarcerated for small amounts, and we would also be able to tax it as a cigarette. And I think that that's another way in which we might have a resource for the budget.
The same question for you, Mr. Anderson. What is your position on expanding or restricting marijuana access in Florida?
I would expand it. Right now, we have created a cartel situation where there is only a small amount of licensing for distribution and growing, which does not support the capitalistic idea. This is a booming industry and a budding industry, no pun intended, and there is a lot of growth to be able to have. We have seen studies after studies of the positive impacts in taxing, as well as some negative impacts with crime, and it will allow us to be able to hire more police officers, hire more community workers, better fund schools. And so to smartly and safely open up that industry is huge. Within that, we also have to expand the ability for drug courts. We have to expand the ability for rehab centers. Sorry, my light just went off. We have to make sure that we're giving resources to where a potential abuse could happen.
Well, continuing with you, Mr. Anderson, are you satisfied with the current process and implementation for citizens proposing constitutional amendments? And if not, what would you change?
I'm sorry, can you say that question again?
Or are you satisfied with the current process and implementation for citizens proposing constitutional amendments? And if not, what would you change?
To be completely honest, I don't know enough about that process to be able to give an answer, a well thought out answer. That would be something that I would have to research more.
All right, the same question for you, Senator Stewart. Are you satisfied with the current process and implementation for citizens proposing constitutional amendments? And if not, what would you change?
No, I feel as if these regulations that are put on us being able to change our constitution as citizens is going to, particularly the amendment that's on there now that requires you 2 times to go through the same process. That's just interfering with our rights and our constitutional rights to see that if the legislator does not do their job, then I think citizens have a right to try and make that change.
All right, continuing with you, Senator, what do you consider to be the 3 greatest challenges currently facing the state of Florida? And how do you propose to meet them?
The three, of course, we've heard this, so I'll keep saying it. Unemployment and getting the virus under control, but we're going to do that when we get to Tallahassee. I'm almost certain. But what we do need to do is work on the environment. I was able to get $100 million into Florida Forever. That, you know, is always a struggle to do so. But we did get it. It did pass. So I'm going to continue trying to do that. And also saltwater intrusion. That happens here in Central Florida because Cocoa has no fresh water. So they come to Orange County and they drill down and in our wells, get out of our aquifer water, and they use that. So desalinization is what I think is really important. I've heard that with this new legislation we may be proposing that it will include that. So I'm really excited to see that something like that might happen. And then the other thing is I've been trying now for a while to get car van alarms for transportation of child care, children in vans where they leave them in there and they die. And we have deaths every year on kids being left behind in hot cars, and it gets through the Senate, but it stalls in the House. So I have talked to Representative Sprouls, the incoming speaker, and told him I really hope he can help me out to get this bill through this year.
All right. And the same question for you, Mr. Anderson. What do you consider the 3 greatest challenges currently facing the state of Florida, and how do you propose to meet them?
Oh, that's a constant moving target in this state. First off, the car alarms, Senator Stewart had that passed and pulled the bill. And so she keeps moving forward with it. The biggest one is obviously unemployment. Second one is making sure that we're having environmental safeties. We have put resources into restoring Everglades, continuously funding that, making sure that we're working towards banning fertilizer and fertilizer runoff that leads to hyper blue-green algae blooms. The third one is we have a massive issue with sex trafficking and gun and gang violence in our cities. We had a shootout just up the street from where I work today, and we need to curb our gang issues that we're having and our sex trafficking as well. We need to make sure that we're putting into legislation that allows for growth in a sustainable way that won't tax our natural resources or deplete them, because let's be blunt, Florida has beautiful natural resources, natural strings, and it's why people come from all over the world to our state.
All right, well, believe it or not, we're down to our last question. And I would like to ask each opponent to ask the other a question. You each ask each other one question and you have 30 seconds. And please keep your question brief. Senator Stewart, your question for Mr. Anderson?
Well, I don't really know him very well, but we'll go with, do you think residents in Central Florida are surviving?
Surviving, yes. Thriving, no. And those are two totally different things. I think that the citizens of Central Florida, we've had so many tragedies since I've been here, Pulse, other shootings, recession, they are surviving, but not thriving. We've been hit with our legs underneath us and we're trying to catch ourselves on a fall. And it's very important for a legislator to grab every resource they can. And to me, how we're going to help Florida is not by throwing a ton of legislation in, but by picking up the phones and lobbying and working with the companies to help us and be good stewards to our community.
Mr. Anderson, a question for Senator Stewart?
I'll ask you the same question.
I think that this has been a very difficult year for everyone. And I think that in many ways, we have a lot of work to do. And we need to start putting together the things that we will take to Tallahassee to make sure that we can make things better. I do agree that it's going to take us a while to get there. It's not going to happen this year. Probably won't even happen next year, but we're going to keep working on it until we can get some common sense and some legislation that will be helpful to those that live in Central Florida and the state of Florida.
And with that, I would like to thank our candidates for participating in tonight's event, to the community partners who helped produce it, and to you, the voters, for taking time to learn about the candidates. Now, as a reminder, Election Day is next Tuesday, November 3rd. And if you've learned anything tonight and would like to help the commission on local debates to reach more voters, please make a donation today. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.